The night I found the USB drive, I almost didn't notice it. I was looking for my chapstick. That's all. My lips were dry, the hotel bathroom was too bright, and I was digging through my clutch at 11:30 at night while Arthur was on the phone in the other room, laughing at something I wasn't supposed to hear. The drive was small. One of those flat rectangular ones, matte black, the kind that comes in a 10-pack from Amazon. It had no label, no initials, nothing, and it was tucked into the interior zip pocket of my bag, underneath my travel pharmacy. Ibuprofen, allergy tabs, a folded receipt from CVS. I stood there with it between my fingers for a long moment. It was not mine. I am the kind of woman who labels things. My chapstick has my name on it in Sharpie. My travel charger has a piece of blue tape. If I owned a USB drive, you would know it was mine. So I turned it over once, then again, and I listened to Arthur's laughter filtering in from the other room. Easy and warm. The laugh he used when he wanted someone to feel like they were the only person in the world. And I put the drive back exactly where I found it. I didn't say a word. I didn't sleep, either. Arthur and I had been married for 9 years. We met in Chicago, at a work conference neither of us wanted to attend. I was 31 and working in corporate compliance at a mid-sized financial firm. He was a senior partner at an investment advisory group 2 floors above us in the same building on Michigan Avenue. We dated for 2 years, got married at a vineyard in Sonoma, and for a long while actually. It was good. It was genuinely good. When our daughter Lily was born, I took maternity leave. When Arthur's firm expanded and he started traveling more, I scaled back. When he suggested I step back entirely, just for a year, just to give Lily some stability, I told myself it made sense. He was earning more than enough. The commute was killing me. I was tired in a way I couldn't describe to anyone who hadn't felt it. That was 6 years ago. I hadn't gone back to work, not because I didn't want to. I did, with an ache I kept mostly to myself, but because every time I brought it up, Arthur had a reason. Lily needed consistency. The market was unstable. Why add stress to a system that was working? The system, I had come to understand, worked very well for Arthur. He had an assistant named Colette. She'd been with his firm for 3 years. I'd met her twice, once at a company holiday party, where she smiled at me with her whole face, and once at a client dinner where she and Arthur finished each other's sentences about a deal they were closing in Philadelphia. She was efficient, he said. Brilliant, actually. Indispensable. I had filed that word away without comment. This trip to Philadelphia was supposed to be a joint thing. Arthur had a 2-day client summit, and I'd planned to visit my college roommate Bet, who lived in Rittenhouse Square, and had been asking me to come for months. We drove down from Chicago together, which alone should have told me something, because Arthur hated road trips. He preferred to fly, but he said he wanted the time together, said it with such conviction that I almost believed him, and so we packed the car and drove 11 hours through Indiana and Ohio and Pennsylvania, with Lily at her grandparents' and NPR on the radio. Colette was already at the hotel when we arrived. That should have told me something too. The morning after I found the drive, I woke up before Arthur. I lay there watching the ceiling for a while, that Philadelphia hotel ceiling with its decorative molding, and the faint sound of Broad Street traffic 6 floors below, and I thought very carefully about what I was going to do. I'm a compliance officer by training. Or I was. What that means, practically, is that I spent years being paid to notice things other people missed. A discrepancy in a filing, a clause that shouldn't be there, a pattern that didn't quite fit. You develop a particular kind of patience. You learn not to react until you understand what you're looking at. So I didn't react. I got up, made coffee from the in-room machine, and while Arthur showered, I took the drive to my laptop and plugged it in. There were 2 folders. The first was labeled with a string of numbers I didn't recognize. The second was simply labeled GH Transfers. I opened the second one. What I found took me about 4 minutes to understand and approximately 30 seconds to realize was serious. Spreadsheets. Wire transfer records. A PDF that appeared to be an amended partnership agreement with a signature line that had Arthur's name typed below it, but a different signature above it. Emails, printed and scanned, between Arthur and a man named Gregory Holt, who I knew only as a name Arthur mentioned occasionally in the context of a side investment that he'd never fully explained to me. The numbers were large. The dates went back 14 months. The shower turned off. I ejected the drive, closed my laptop, and put the drive back in my bag. Then I sat down on the edge of the bed with my coffee and opened my phone to the weather app like I'd been doing that the whole time. "You're up early," Arthur said when he came out, towel around his waist, already checking his own phone. "Couldn't sleep," I said. Big day fee. For you? Full morning. Colette's got the conference room from 9. He didn't look up. You're seeing Bet? That's the plan. He nodded and started getting dressed. I watched him pick out a tie, the navy one with the small silver pattern, his lucky tie, the one he wore when he was closing something, and I thought about those wire transfer records. Gregory Holt. A signature that wasn't quite right. Arthur, I said, is that your USB drive on the nightstand? He looked up. Something crossed his face. Not panic, not quite, but a recalibration. The kind of micro-expression I'd learned to read after 9 years. What? There's a drive on the nightstand. I gestured vaguely toward my side of the room. I found it in my bag last night, thought it might be yours. Oh. He came around the bed and picked up the chapstick I'd placed there. That's just your lip balm. Right, I said. I moved it. The drive's in my bag still, I think. Don't worry about it, he said too easily. It's nothing. I smiled and finished my coffee. I called Bet from the lobby while Arthur was upstairs finishing his prep. I need to ask you something, I said, and I need you to not freak out. Bet is a family law attorney. She has been for 11 years. She has the particular quality of being completely unshockable, which is one of the things I love most about her. The drive, the folders, the transfer records, the amended agreement with the almost right signature. There was a pause. Okay, she said. Don't touch it again. I mean, don't add anything to it, don't delete anything. Where is it now? In my bag. Keep it there. I'm going to call someone. A colleague. He does white-collar work, securities fraud, that kind of thing. I want him to look at those file names before you do anything else, Bet. I lowered my voice. A businessman walked past me through the lobby, dragging a roller bag. I think Arthur knows it's in my bag. I think that's why it's in my bag. Another pause, longer this time. You think he put it there on purpose? I think he was going to have me carry something through this summit, back to Chicago, without knowing what I was carrying. A cutout. If anything ever got questioned, it's in my bag. My prints are on it. I found it, I touched it, I put it back. Bet was quiet for a moment in the way she gets quiet when she's thinking fast. Okay, she said again. Don't give it to him. If he asks for it, say you don't know what he's talking about. Can you get me a copy of everything on that drive without him knowing? I already did, I said. It's in my Dropbox. Another pause. Then, I always knew you were the smart one. I need one more thing from you, I said. Do you still have those blank drives? The ones you used for the Henderson case? She did. Bet met me at the hotel coffee shop 40 minutes later. She brought the drive, identical style, identical size, matte black, and I transferred nothing onto it. A decoy, blank. We sat across from each other with our lotties, and she pulled up her colleague's number, and I sat very still and thought about 9 years, and the vineyard in Sonoma, and the way Arthur had looked at me across the ceremony while I was walking toward him, and whether any of it had been real, or whether I had simply been useful for a very long time. You don't have to do anything dramatic, Bet said. We can go the quiet route. I know. I turned the blank drive over in my hand, but I've been going the quiet route for 6 years. I stepped back from my career. I managed his household. I drove Lily to school and hosted his clients for dinner and smiled at Colette at the Christmas party. I set the drive down on the table. I'm done with the quiet route. She looked at me for a moment. What are you going to do? Arthur has a client reception tonight. 7 o'clock. Grand ballroom downstairs. Gregory Holt will be there. His name was on the conference attendee list. Arthur left on the desk. And Colette? She's presenting the portfolio summary. Arthur told me this morning. I picked up my latte. I'm going to put the blank drive back in my bag. And tonight, when the moment is right, I'm going to make sure Gregory Holt receives exactly what he came here to get. The reception was the kind of event that cost more per plate than most people's car payments. Champagne in real crystal, a string quartet in the corner, men in suits that fit them too well exchanging the kind of pleasantries that are actually negotiations. I wore the black dress Arthur had complimented twice, which I now understood was because it made me look appropriately decorative and not at all like a threat. Arthur introduced me to people, the way he always did at these things, with warmth and a hand at the small of my back, and a slightly abbreviated version of who I was. This is my wife, Laurel. Not, this is Laurel, who ran compliance for Hartwell Financial for 6 years. Just, wife. Noun, not name. I smiled at everyone. I was very good at smiling at everyone. I found Gregory Holt near the bar, which was predictable. He was in his early 60s, silver-haired, the kind of tan you get from actual leisure rather than a salon, wearing a watch that probably cost more than my first car. He was talking to another man about golf, and when Arthur steered me over and introduced us, Gregory shook my hand with the particular energies of someone who has never once considered that the woman in front of him might be paying close attention. "Laurel," he said. "Arthur talks about you." "He talks about you too," I said pleasantly. "GH Capital, right? Exciting work." Something shifted behind his eyes, almost nothing, barely a flicker, and he smiled. "That's right. Did Arthur tell you about our venture?" "He mentioned a side investment." I kept my tone light. "He's always been good at finding the right partners." Gregory smiled broader. Arthur beside me put his hand on my back again. I felt the faint pressure of it, the steering, the subtle redirection, and I let him steer me into another conversation while filing away the look on Gregory's face. At 9:15, I excused myself to get a glass of water. At 9:20, I was standing near the coat room where Colette had left her tote bag. I'd clocked it when she arrived, hung on the third hook, distinctive because it was sage green and everyone else's coats were dark. My bag was on my shoulder, the drive was in my hand. I thought about Lily, asleep at her grandparents' house in Evanston. I thought about the woman I used to be at 31, walking into a conference room on Michigan Avenue with a yellow legal pad, and a job I was genuinely good at. I thought about the look on Arthur's face when he picked up the chapstick off the nightstand. "It's nothing," he'd said. I unzipped the top of Colette's tote and slipped the blank drive into the interior pocket. Then I went back to the reception and drank my water and watched the string quartet play something I thought was Vivaldi. I didn't have to wait long. At 9:45, Arthur found Gregory near the far end of the room, and I watched them from across the space in a conversation that was too brief and too quiet to be social. Arthur gestured once, toward me I thought, though I couldn't be certain, and Gregory nodded and excused himself in the direction of the coat room. Arthur came back to me. "Having a good time?" "It's a beautiful event," I said. "Colette did a wonderful job with the presentation." "She did." He put his arm around me. It felt strange, like putting on a coat that no longer fit. "We can head up soon if you want. I just need to wrap up a few things." "Take your time," I said. 3 minutes later, I heard Gregory Holt's voice rise from somewhere near the coat room entrance. Not loud enough for everyone to hear, but loud enough for the people nearby to turn. I watched Arthur's face as the sound reached him. The smile falling away in increments, like lights going out, one by one in a building. Gregory appeared at the edge of the reception room, holding the blank drive, and looking at Arthur with an expression I can only describe as a specific fury of a man who has just realized he has been handed an empty envelope. "A word," Gregory said. His voice was controlled and quiet, and much more frightening for it. Arthur stared at him. Then he looked at me. I looked back, and I want to be precise about this moment, because I've replayed it many times since. I didn't smirk, I didn't say anything, I didn't give him any expression at all. I simply held his gaze steadily, the way you hold a door open for someone, and let him do the math. He went white, not pale. White. "Excuse me," I said pleasantly to the woman I'd been standing with, and I picked up my clutch from the side table and walked out of the reception room, and through the lobby and up to our hotel room, where I called Bet. "It went perfectly," I said. "Are you okay?" I sat down on the edge of the bed, my side, not his. "I'm okay. He's going to know. He already knows." I looked at my hands, they were steady. I was a little surprised by that. He knew the second Gregory's face changed. "What do you want to do?" I thought about it. Not long. I had been thinking about it since the lobby that morning. In pieces, the way I used to work through a compliance question, turning it over until the shape of it was clear. "I'm going to go home tomorrow. I'm going to pick up Lily from Mom and Dad's. And on Monday, I'm going to call the attorney you recommended and give him everything that's on that drive. And Arthur? Arthur can figure out his own arrangements." I pulled off one earring, then the other. I stayed quiet for 6 years because I thought it was the right thing. I thought I was protecting something. I think what I was actually doing was protecting his version of our life, not mine. Bet was quiet. "I want my career back," I said. "I want Lily to grow up watching me work. I want to be the version of myself I was, before I let someone convince me she was a problem to be managed." "You know this is going to be complicated," Bet said. "I know." I set the earrings on the nightstand. "I've spent 9 years simplifying things for someone else. I can handle complicated." Arthur came up to the room at 11:10. I was in bed with the lamp on, reading. Or holding a book, which is close enough. He stood in the doorway for a moment in that way people stand when they're deciding how to play something, and I turned a page without looking up. Laurel. Arthur. He came in and sat down on the small chair near the window rather than on the bed. A choice that told me everything about how clearly he was thinking. The drive in your bag. What about it? It wasn't supposed to be there. A pause. I mean, I thought I'd misplaced it. You misplaced it, I said. Yes. I finally looked up. His face was doing something complicated, working through a story, testing different framings, trying to find the angle that made this something other than what it was. I recognized the process because I'd spent years watching him use it on clients and opposing counsel and occasionally on me. Arthur, I said quietly. I worked compliance for 6 years. I know what wire transfer records look like. I know what a forged signature looks like. And I know what it looks like when someone is using a third party to move something they don't want attached to their name. He looked at me for a long moment. You copied it, he said. Days ago, I said. Which wasn't true, it had been that morning. But the distinction no longer seemed to matter. He looked at the window, at the dark glass with the city lights behind it. He looked older than I'd seen him look in years, which was the first thing that made me feel something close to sad. And then I thought about Lily and my legal pad and the vineyard in Sonoma. And the sadness moved through me and out the other side. I didn't want you involved, he said. I want you to know that. The plan was never. The plan, I said, was to use my bag, which means I was involved the moment you made that decision. He didn't answer. I think you should find another room for tonight, I said, and turned back to my book. He left without saying anything else. I heard the door close, and I sat there with the book open on my lap, not reading, listening to the traffic outside and the faint sound of the elevator down the hall, and I thought about what Bet had said. Complicated. Yes. What comes next? The lawyers, the proceedings, the conversations with Lily, the rebuilding of everything I'd let go quiet, all of that would be complicated. I wasn't pretending otherwise. But I had the drive. The real one. Everything on it was now in 3 separate places, per Bet's instructions, and on Monday it would be in the hands of someone who knew exactly what to do with it. It took 7 months for the investigation to conclude. Gregory Holt's firm was subpoenaed in the 3rd month. In the 5th month, Arthur accepted a plea agreement that required full restitution and cost him his license. Gregory did not accept a plea agreement and is still navigating the process, which I understand has become very expensive for him. My divorce was finalized on a Tuesday in November, which struck me as a very ordinary day for something so significant. Lily was 8 by then. I told her the truth in the way you tell an 8-year-old the truth, carefully, without assigning blame, with room left for her to feel whatever she needed to feel. She cried. I held her. We went for ice cream afterward, because she asked, and we sat in a booth at the place on Oak Street, and she had mint chip, and I had plain vanilla, and she told me about a girl at school who was mean to her friend, and I thought, this is the part that is actually mine. This right here. I went back to work in January. Not to Hartwell, to a smaller firm, one that had reached out the previous spring when word got around, the way word does in that industry, that I was available. I'm a senior compliance officer now. I have my own office and a team of 4 and a parking spot, with my name on it in the garage, which Lily thinks is the most impressive thing I've ever accomplished. She might be right. I'm not going to tell you. The hardest part was the courtroom or the lawyers, or even the particular morning I sat in Bet's office and signed the paperwork and made it official. The hardest part was the first week back at work, when I sat down at my desk at 7:45 in the morning and pulled up my first case file and realized that my hands still knew what to do, that the instinct was still there, that 6 years of stepping back hadn't taken that from me, even though I'd been afraid it had. I cried in the bathroom, just for a minute. Then I washed my face and went back to my desk and got to work. There are things in a woman's life that seem small at first, a drive she almost doesn't notice, tucked beneath the ibuprofen and the folded CVS receipt. A moment in a hotel bathroom at 11:30 at night when she could have put it back and pretended she hadn't seen it. I am glad I did not pretend. I am glad I stood there in that too bright bathroom with a blank black drive between my fingers and let myself understand exactly what I was looking at. Because that was the moment. Not the reception, not the courtroom, not the signed papers. That was the moment I stopped managing someone else's version of my life and started building my own.